Morning, Jamie Rogers.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. Did you watch the Origin last night?
I certainly did. Look, whilst it was a disappointing result, I thought it was a fantastic game. But one thing, boys, when I was sitting there watching it towards the end, and I thought, I think we should have had James Maloney in the side. I feel like he's always someone when we're in that pressure situation, he does sort of lift for us. But anyway, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So on that, if you had to pick your halves combination for game 2 right now, who would you pick?
Me, if I had to pick my halves combination right now, I'd be going back to the future. I think you go with James, and I think you go with Mitchell Pearce. I know a lot of people will be critical of that decision, but I think we missed Jimmy's ability to be not flustered in those circumstances. He'll back himself. He might make an error. He might miss a tackle, but we wouldn't have lost our way if Maloney was on the field. And Mitchell Pearce, I'd give him another opportunity. I mean, you've got to remember that Pearce, when he was playing Origin, was coming up against the greatest Queensland sides of all time. He's in arguably career best form. Some people will say that he hasn't excelled under pressure on that arena. I think, given this Queensland team that he would play against, I think he'd do an outstanding job. So that'd be who I'd be looking at this moment.
All right. I'm happy enough with that. I'm happy enough with those halves. I'd only have to sit down with Mitchell, and he'd just have to convince me that the mental scars of the poor old bagging that he copped nationwide regarding, carrying the weight of all those losses for New South Wales hasn't affected him when he gets out there. He'll just be the Mitchell Pearce that we're seeing currently play so well for Newcastle. That's all. He'd only have to have that one conversation with me and you go, hey, Coach, I'm fine.
Well, you look at Josh Morris last night.
But they're different characters, mate. Josh was never blamed for, wrecking the entire state of New South Wales.
And he's past his best, Josh. Yeah. But last night, when you're not up against a Greg Inglis and it's a Michael Morgan, he handled that. I've got no doubt that Mitchell Pearce could handle this environment against the opposition that he's facing.
I'm with you. He's just got it. All right. Coach, I'll be fine.
That's all. I think at times, he hasn't handled the pressure. And the fact that he was under so much scrutiny and he was playing against some of the greatest players of all time, it probably did affect him mentally. But you know what? They're no longer there. They're no longer there. So he would come into this environment, he'd fit in straight away. And I think he's going as well, if not better, than any other player in the competition.
There you go.
Well, who was the surprise packet for you out of game 1?
Ben Hunt. Ben Hunt was the surprise packet. I always thought he was a really good player. I always thought that hooker was his best spot, and in particular in rep football. But to see how he got through 80 minutes, to see him work so hard in defence, and to see, more importantly, how he inspired his teammates with his will to win, I thought that was exceptional. And to play 80 minutes, to make 53 tackles, yes, at times his passing game wasn't as crisp and as sharp as a Cameron Smith or a Damien Cook. He was a threat out of dummy half with his running game. Defensively, he was great, and he also provided a threat with his kicking game.
Well, the surprise for me was that nobody in New South Wales surprised me. And that was the problem. And my surprise for Queensland was the blokes like Jai Arrow, blokes like Josh Papali, blokes like Ben Hunt, Dane Gagai did it again. They all lifted, and I don't know whether anyone in New South Wales played beyond their ability, and I think there was a few blokes who played beyond their ability for Queensland. That was the difference, Jamie.
Well, boys, Isaac Heaney during the week has said he'd love to see AFL Origin return, and he is convinced that New South Wales have enough talent to create a team. Can you see this concept returning, whether we pick it up from Western Australia and South Australia? What do you think?
I can't see it returning in the format like the rugby league have it. I could see it being played once every 4 or 5 years. I know there'd be pullback from the clubs. I think the players would like to play in it. They'd like to test themselves against the best players and also play with players from other clubs who are regarded as superstars. But I don't know whether the clubs would allow their players and there'd be fight back against the AFL.
It's the only thing that the AFL have never been made work. And I think that says that it just doesn't have that background that it has.
Years ago it did.
No, it never worked.
Years ago.
No. State of Origin AFL never worked.
Well, I'll guarantee you it did, TK.
How long ago?
Going back, 30 years. 25. It was massive, mate. It was massive, believe me. South Australia.
I can't remember it
Victoria,
being big.
It was massive.
You're a bit older than me, so you've probably got a better memory. I can't. It was that successful it doesn't exist anymore. There you go. That's how good it was.
And guys, before we go to the news...
That's how big it was.
Before we go to the news, Izzy's resurrection. So as we've been reading, Israel Folau was trying to come back into the NRL by offering vetting power over his social media and will undertake religious expression training. And apparently clubs have already expressed interest in signing him. But I know Peter Beattie has maintained his stance that Folau won't be re-registered. But how could we actually possibly trust him if he was ever to return to the NRL?
Yeah, well, that's there's only one person that can, convince you that he is going to change, and that's Israel. But in terms of how do you trust him, I'm not quite sure. I'm with Peter Beattie on this, but I'm for different reasons.
Yeah.
I'm for different reasons.
Well, I'm for Jamie's reasons. I'm for the trust reason because he sat down, according to what my information is, on 5 occasions,
but you're not allowed to lie.
Guaranteed. Rock solid. He wouldn't be carrying on with his social media. And they went with that guarantee and he backflipped. Now, all my lawyer friends say, if it's not in the contract, it doesn't exist. And quite clearly, that was Israel's attitude as well.
A verbal agreement.
Nah.
If you've got someone else in the room,
mate, if it's not in the contract...
verbal agreement is just as solid.
Check with your barrister friends.
Yeah.
If it's not in the contract, it doesn't exist.
Right. So regardless of whether you've got 2 people in a room or 3 people in a room.
Good luck.
Right, yeah. I'll check that out, Terry.
You check it out. You've got plenty. You hang around with those blokes with the wigs. I know that. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, guys.